Hello, and welcome to week number 10 Monster Pod here on Lineups. Matt Brown, Noops Christensen coming to you each and every game on the NFL slate. Our bets, our thoughts, any games we absolutely hate, any leans, and of course, player prop thoughts as well. Noops, really glad that we're just moving into the games on the weekend, because that Thursday night game was one of the worst NFL football games I have sat through in an incredibly long time. I don't want to sit here and bitch and moan about a game that's already happened, so we won't do that. What I will say, though, the Broncos have moved to 8-2. Maybe the fakest 8-2, that we have out there. They're going to make the playoffs. All I'm doing now at this point is just waiting to whoever they get matched up with. I'm probably just going to play against them. I mean, this team to me is just so incredibly flawed, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where if it wasn't for this defense, they would lose every game. They would lose every game by double digits because of Bo Nix and the play calling and the everything that goes on, only to be topped last night by how terrible the Raiders called the game.
It's unbelievable. The Broncos absolutely are going to be that team where when we go back and look over the offseason, their Pythag, their record in close games. I mean, they only beat the Titans by 8. They only beat the Eagles by 4. They only beat the Jets by 2. They only beat the Giants by 1, the Texans by 3, and now the Raiders by 3. I mean, that is 5 or 6 wins that really absolutely could have gone the other way. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Why complain about it? Let's just get excited to bet against Bo Nix in round 1.
That's exactly what we're going to do here. Let's go ahead, though. For me out here on the West Coast, bright and early 6:30 a.m. kick, at least 9:30 for you over there. The Falcons have gone over to Berlin. They will be playing the Colts. It is a 6.5-point spread for the Colts at home. 48.5 to 49 is our total out there in the market. The Colts actually started their press conference this morning over there in Berlin by letting us know that they are moving DeForest Buckner to IR with a neck injury. So he will be out for them for the next 4 weeks. And obviously for a Colts team that just made a real push at the trade deadline, that is not great news, but maybe better news that you did go out and make the big home run swing to get Sauce Gardner in there, because DeForest Buckner matters, and he's not going to be with them for 4 weeks going forward here in this one. But they get the Falcons this week and nearly a touchdown favorite. What say you?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. I've been staring at the Colts all week, -6.5. I just can't quite get there. The team total sits at 27.5. I feel like I should bet both of those, but really nervous about losing DeForest Buckner, a huge part of what they do in the run defense game against an Atlanta Falcons team that loves to run the ball, that is built around Bijan Robinson and even Tyler Algier and what those guys can do. Now, the Falcons are in an absolute free-fall at this point. They've got several defensive starters that are listed as questionable. It could be a very messy game for them, but wrap it all together in this goofy travel spot, going to Germany for 1 week. I'm just not quite there. I should probably bet the Colts and their team total over, but I just can't quite get myself to put money down on it.
Yeah, this is, Indy doesn't blitz a ton, but there's just the 20th blitz rate in the NFL. But when they do, they're actually very effective. Number 1 in the NFL in defensive blitz EPA against. So, they're very good when they actually do blitz and get home. So I don't know if they'll have to do a little bit more of that with DeForest Buckner out of there. They've been good at it, at least so far this season. And very interesting that the Falcons blitz at the second highest rate in the NFL, but a guy that we used to think that, would wet down his leg all the time, like Danny Dimes, actually first in pressure rate EPA in the NFL so far this season. So he's been great against pressure. So we'll see if the Falcons just continue on with what they've been doing all season long. And if so, if Danny Dimes just continues on with what he's been doing all season long, which is actually torching the blitz and torching pressure. So we'll see how something's got to give type thing here. I'm either laying it with the Colts or passing here. I am not. I'm never taking the points with Atlanta, given just how Jekyll and Hyde this team has been for me this season. Noops just can't. It's very, very hard for me to trust this team.
I don't see how you possibly can. Even when Penix does play, he's really up and down. We've seen them in games against teams they should thrash, lose. We've seen them against teams as big underdogs win. Anything is possible. Enjoy the early morning football with your coffee, but I wouldn't necessarily suggest you have any wagers.
Yeah, Sauce Gardner's going to play, by the way, guys. So like he's suited up and he's going to play. They're going to stick him on Drake London. And so this team that's kind of struggled on offense as it is anyway for the Falcons, it's like, okay, so now Drake London is removed from the game. And you got to win with Kyle Pitts through the air. You got to win with Mooney through the, I mean, like what do you do, And so I don't know, no confidence there. They're going to figure out how to score the ball a ton there in that one. We have the Cleveland Browns on the road at the New York Football Jets. This is a flip favorite situation where the Browns are now favored by 2.5. 37.5 to 38 is our total. Noops. This flipped because the Jets traded two defensive players. Very interesting to me. I understand that they are high profile players, but the defense wasn't that great anyway. And so if you were betting the Jets because of two defensive players on a defense that wasn't that great anyway, then you were probably handicapping this wrong. I understand that the move through zero is insignificant. It's just interesting to me that like you get Sauce Gardner move and Quentin Williams move, and then it's like, oh, it's a 4-point swing in the spread. And it's like, have you guys seen the Jets defensive statistics? I mean, it's not really good anyway. So like if you were backing this team because of the defense, then you probably weren't doing it right to begin with. What do you think about the Browns heading over to New York?
It's a very interesting situation because on top of the fact that the Jets defense has already been an absolute disaster, it's not like the Browns offense is very good.
Right.
The Quinshon Judkins is beat up. Looks like he's trending towards playing, but if he misses this game, Dylan Gabriel can't throw the ball more than 10, 15 yards down the field. It's a really sort of easy spot, and we've got both of these teams coming off a bye. They've been preparing for a game that is kind of a must-lose for both. These are squads that are looking at the number one pick. The postseason is done. I don't know if they're technically officially eliminated yet, but they're out. I promise you the Jets and the Browns won't be playing past week 18 this season. So you've got a Browns team with 2 wins. You've got a Jets team with 1 win. Whoever wins this game is probably out of the running for the number one pick. So how do you bet a game between two teams that are losing, that want to lose? It's just an absolute head scratcher here. Was hoping to bet the under, but the total is already comically low at 37.5. And with as bad as the Jets defense is going to be, and as good as the Jets offense still can be if Garrett Wilson comes back with Breece Hall, with Justin Fields, maybe there is enough offense here to get to 40 points. It's just, Matt, you always talk about launching a game into the sun. This is a perfect candidate for it.
Yeah, I mean, if someone said, okay, Matt, you have to play this game in some fashion, I mean, if you're going to give me 8 points with the Jets in a teaser leg and match, I mean, that's probably the only way I could play this. I mean, I don't want to lay any points with Cleveland. Like you said, I mean, yes, the defense is good in Cleveland, but the offense cannot move the ball. Like Dylan Gabriel, if you go in and look at all these stats, it is unbelievable. I mean, on passes 10 to 19 yards, his catchable throw rate is only 61%. Like, this isn't even like down the field passes for Dylan Gabriel. We're talking 10 to 19 yards, and the catchable ball rate is only 61%. Like, you're drawing dead. Like, you are drawing dead if you can't throw a 15-yard pass that's not catchable at least 75% of the time. I mean, this is just it's unbelievable. So anyway, it's an interesting deal here. Like I said, only play for me could possibly be Jets in a teaser leg, and it's a stinky one that you'd put in. But dude, Cleveland's offense isn't, even against this defense, isn't going to score a ton of points. They're not built to do that. It's not going to happen. New Orleans Saints on the road at the Carolina Panthers. This is 5.5 in favor of Carolina at home. 39.5 is our total here in this one. So we're sitting kind of in that dead zone there, Noop. So I guess my only advice here was if you like Carolina, buy off the 5.5 and buy up to 6 or 6.5 or something or whatever, something like that. Like get you a little better price, maybe get you some plus money or something like that. New Orleans now with Shook making his second start. They shipped Shaheed out of town, and which everyone knew anyway. This was like talked about beginning of the season. His contract was expiring, and they don't have the money to re-sign him. So he was going to be gone regardless. And so This game is interesting to me. I'm a little nervous. I originally had Carolina circled where I was going to play them in Survivor. I still have one little measly circa Survivor entry still left, and I pivoted off of it. I'm a little bit nervous about what could be the variance in this one because I don't know who Tyler Shook is. I don't know what kind of rapport he has with Vele that they traded for several weeks ago, that they're saying that they did it because they knew Shaheed was going to be gone and they thought that he could be a 1-for-1 kind of deal. I mean, I don't, they still have Kamara. They still have Olave, like whatever. So I don't know. The variance in this one pushed me off of it. So I know it's probably going to be the most popular or second most popular choice in Survivor this week. I just couldn't quite go there.
Yeah, from a Survivor perspective, I think a lot of it depends on what you have left on your plate. If you are a team that's made it through the first half of the season by picking a lot of big favorites, now is when you start to need to get a little contrarian so you can save what few good teams you have left. You're kind of really staring at a Panthers team that is kind of quietly just a game out of the playoffs here. I think, we continue to talk about the Panthers like they're a bad team, but they're at worst case average, basically, from a power rating perspective. I have them kind of right in the middle. They've been much better at home here. And the Saints, we just saw Shaheed leave. That's probably their most impactful receiver in terms of changing what defenses want to do. Olave is great, but he just doesn't take the top off the defense the way Shaheed does. And you mentioned Kamara. I'm wondering if we could just start playing Kamara unders. He seems like he has checked out. I don't know if he's soft quitting or what the deal is. The effort isn't there. He is not running with the same ferocity we're used to seeing him. Shuck looked okay last week. I don't think he's worse than Spencer Rattler, but overall, I'm still looking at a bad Saints team on their second road game in a row with some changes to deal with. Very limited offensively against a Panthers team that has no problem scoring the ball at home, that has developed a really solid run game now with Rico Dowdle and still Chuba Hubbard coming off the bench to fill in for him, basically. I kind of feel crazy saying this, but I love the Panthers minus 5.5. I had this closer to 6.5, and that is a huge difference.
One other thing, I mentioned the Survivor angle here. I kind of glossed over it because I can't believe it's a real thing, but there is some buzz out there about maybe playing the Browns this week. And I put this out on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, you've already heard this take, but no matter what contest you're in, even if you're in Circa where you have the holiday weeks, you're still allowed to not play 12 teams. There's only 20 weeks in the season. There's 32 NFL teams. You're allowed to not play 12 teams. So making it this far in the contest where you're inside 10% of basically every pool out there is down to 10% or sub 10%.
Yeah.
You've made it through 90% of the cuts. You want to get bounced with a bottom 5 power rated team on the road? Is that really how you want to go out? You don't have to play this team. They can be discarded. You can just not play the Browns this season. That is the great thing about there being more teams than there are weeks in the season. You don't have to play every team. So again, if you follow me on Twitter, you've already seen this rant, but I couldn't believe that I started seeing some projection systems where it was 3% and 4% on the Browns. And I'm like, what are we doing here? What's going on?
I love the way you break that down. There are 12 teams you don't have to pick. I think that really explains it in a very clear way. And as you're starting to make that list, I mean, maybe the Browns are at the top of the 12 teams you don't want to pick, but they're on that list. You're just absolutely nuts. And again, you've done all this hard work and you're down to 10%, which as much as I just talked about maybe being a little contrarian and taking the Panthers, you don't have to be contrarian at this point. We're kind of towards the end at this point with just about 10%, again, of survivor pools is generally where we are. Don't get cute. Make sure you're picking a team that at least has a good chance to win that's at home. I mean, it's much different taking a Panthers close to a touchdown favorite versus trying to trust a Browns team that might not score more than 7 points, not scored by their defense.
Buffalo's on the road at Miami. They are 9.5 pretty much universally out there in the market. It is 49.5 to 50 from a total standpoint. The Buffalo Bills really went and made a statement last week. I do understand that it was a home game, and that is a big deal for Buffalo, but we're not in the dead of winter, so it's not like this huge, crazy home field advantage for Buffalo that we talk about whenever we talk about games in the middle of December and January or something like that. And Noops, they just comprehensively beat the Chiefs, and honestly worse than it looked like on the scoreboard, because that kind of flipped there at the end of the first half where the Chiefs were able to get a field goal and all of that. I mean, it was it was something where it could have been even worse there for the Bills. And of course, they get stopped on fourth down at midfield, which led to the short field score for the Chiefs. Or again, could have been even worse for them. I don't know what Miami's going to be doing. They didn't completely sell off, which I think Miami should have looked at the done. I think the Saints, I think Miami, I think there's a couple of different teams should have done what the Jets did, which is just sell off all of your good parts, restock, and understand that you need to do a rebuild. Miami didn't do that, just moved one defensive player. I don't know where they're at, man. I don't know if you play the narrative stuff or not, but feels like they know the coach is gone. GM is already gone. You hear the rumblings of who's going to be quarterback. Are they actually going to bench two? All this stuff like that. Like, I just don't know where Miami is from a locker room perspective. And I try not to handicap stuff that I can't quantify, but like, it's got to be, it has to be there. You can't be like pumped to walk in that locker room every day. I just can't imagine it.
No, not at all. But I've been saying that every single week, and every time I bet against the Dolphins, they play well. I bet on the Dolphins, they play poorly. So it's just the ultimate stay away team for me. They sold at the deadline, lost probably their best defensive player in Julian Phillips. Again, we know Tyreek Hill is out for the season already. It's just an absolute mess there. But they continue to come out. You know, it's one of those things we talk about in football. There is no tanking in football. These guys are all trying to hit contract levers and things like that. Guys are trying to make sure that they're healthy and going into the next season, they can get a deal. So it's a tough spot here. I feel like I should be betting the Bills. They just seem rejuvenated. But is this a letdown spot after they had a really successful game against Kansas City, in which I was really proud to watch the Bills sort of change what they've done in these games? A lot of times against Kansas City and some of these better teams, the Bills have continued to push at the end of games and continue to try to score points when, and I can't remember who said this, but at a certain point, NFL teams, when they have a lead, are no longer playing their opponent. They're playing the clock. And I think this was one of the first times I've seen the Bills and their coaching staff do a good job of playing the clock. There was 11 possessions in the first half, just 9 possessions in the second half. They really ground down the clock and did a good job of just sort of putting themselves in a position of leaving the Chiefs without enough time to do what they, have been so good at doing in some of these big spots. So feel really good about the Bills. Wanted to bet a Bills team total over, was praying it was 29.5. It's 30.5. It's just a little too high for me. And I think, honestly, it probably should be 10.5 points. But again, I'm just afraid of betting Dolphins games at this point. So lean Bills, think they could score a lot of points, but just don't have the cojones to bet it.
Yeah, my play in this one is longest rush for James Cook over on 16 and a half is where I got it. It's now at 17 and a half. I'm not moving markets. This is definitely people just realizing the same thing I did, which is this Buffalo run defense this Miami run defense was terrible as it is anyway. Now, as you mentioned, trade away your best defensive player, and it's only going to get worse. By the way, over the last 4 weeks, this Miami team is giving up explosive runs at the highest rate in the NFL at a 12% clip. So, this is just insanity. You just don't see that number that high. James Cook is going to get 15, 16, 17 carries in this game, probably, if not more, depending on if Miami can keep it somewhat close, which means that gives him multiple opportunities to rattle off a big one against this defense that has not been able to stop these explosives. So, yeah, I went James Cook, longest run over 16 and a half. The difference between 16 and a half and 17 and a half, negligible. So hopefully it doesn't land directly on 17 if you guys want to tell me on that. But, yeah, I think that he gets fed a ton here. Love him being able to take advantage of poor, weak run defenses. So there's the play for me there in that one.
Yeah, I like that look quite a bit. I think you've put yourself in a really good position.
Jacksonville on the road at Houston. This is 1.5 in favor of Jacksonville. Circa actually has this as a pick still. 37.5 is our total. It's ridiculously low because Jacksonville's entire wide receiver core is basically hurt. Houston's going to be without CJ Stroud, so it's going to be Davis Mills in there for this one. Houston defense is still very, very good, so that's going to suppress scoring as well. So we get the preseason-esque 37.5 on the total front here. Noops, what do you say about this one?
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Do we really want to trust Davis Mills and the Houston Texans, or do we want to bet on a Jaguars team that is basically down to just Jacoby Myers as their receiver in a season where Trevor Lawrence continues to slowly regress? And it's amazing to watch somebody who seemingly has every physical talent and has been given every opportunity not be able to improve. I would be sick to have either one of these tickets in my pocket. Again, looking at the total, was hoping to bet an under. Anything that had a 4 in front of it was an under bet for me, but the stupid efficient market got to us again here. I think 37.5 is a really sharp number, which again is shocking. It's the exact same total that we have for the Browns and Jets. So it's just kind of a crazy game for me where lean towards the Texans. I think that their defense is the best unit in this game. And when you have so much unknown, I try to rely on the unit I can trust the most. And honestly, the Texans defense might score the most points of any unit on this game. If they can get a turnover or two from the Jaguars, they could put up 7 points on their own on the board here and maybe just kind of drive this game on its own. It's Texans or pass, but I have to pass.
It's I will bring this up, and just with the caveat that this is not in my account yet, but might be because I might just have to do the whole like someone's got to have some sort of production. But Parker Washington was getting fed targets even with Brian Thomas and with Travis Hunter in there. He was still getting looks, and then we lose. We lose Travis Hunter. He gets even more targets now without Brian Thomas. He's sitting 45.5 at FanDuel on receiving yards. Unless you think this offense just gets completely shut down and they just have no success whatsoever, it's Jacoby Myers coming in on 3 days trying to figure out this offense, and a dude that's been earning some targets, anyway, and now is going to be the only dude with tenure that's going to be in there for them. So again, I might talk myself into some Parker Washington here under the premise of nothing more than there has to be some sort of production in the game. Like it cannot just Trevor Lawrence isn't going to throw for 72 yards in the game, right? I mean, like there's got to be at least 160-ish, 170-ish yards, even on a bad day of production from him. And if that's the case, you would think that a third of it would go to the dude that's actually been there, but maybe I'm off base.
I like the Parker Washington look. The only other name I would consider is De'Ami Brown. I've been a little bit injured, but when he plays, has gotten open, has gotten quite a few looks. At the end of the day, I think maybe we're trying to talk ourselves into betting on bad wide receivers. I mean, neither one of these guys is super talented, but I like where your head's at. I think what you look at here is instead of yards, I would look at receptions. I think this is going to be a real ball possession game. It's going to be hard for either of those guys to get down the field or generate a lot of yards, but I think Washington is a perfect candidate for a lot of quick passes and things like that. So Parker Washington receptions, I think, is a really nice angle.
Baltimore on the road at Minnesota, 3.5 at DraftKings, 4.5 at ESPN and FanDuel, and 4 everywhere else. 48.5 to 49 is our total out there. And Noops, this is not a necessarily fired into the sun game for me. It's just I'm very confused as to how to approach this game. I mean, one game sample of Baltimore being healthy, and they looked fine, but does that travel? Does the defense we saw from Minnesota last week that was just absolutely lights out against the Lions, do they show up again this week? JJ McCarthy really didn't have to do anything last week. What if he's forced into actually having to do something this week, whatever? So I don't know, man. Just a very, very confusing game for me.
I wish I could offer you some solace, but I couldn't agree more. I think the Vikings are the hardest team to power rate in the NFL, given what we've seen from McCarthy, not even just game to game, but quarter to quarter. We watched him in that first game of the year in Chicago look lost in the first half. Second half comes out, he's doing whatever he wants. Against Detroit, one of the best first quarters I've seen from a quarterback all season, and then really not much the rest of the game. So which version of the Vikings should I believe in? The one that looked great against, a Lions team that's arguably one of the best teams in the NFL, or the Vikings team we've seen in the past, the one that, again, struggled to beat the Bears in game one, has lost some easy games here as we go through. At the same time, Baltimore, That defense has been bad all season. And, is what we saw last week the true Miami Dolphins, and just the Ravens were able to run the ball, keep feeding Derrick Henry, and make things look a lot easier? Or is that defense better? It's so hard to handicap this game. I think it's going to be a great game to watch. I think we're going to see a lot of interesting stuff and really learn a lot about either team. But if you tell me that you have a strong opinion on who's going to win this game and by how much, I hate to call you a liar, but I'm pretty sure that you're lying.
That is the point here for me, is like, you can tell me you just have a feeling about this game, and that's fine. And I will not like poo-poo that, because that's really the only way you can approach this game. But like, if you think you have a strong angle here, then I think you're probably just fooling yourself, right? Because there are no true numbers for us to draw from at all. Because if you look at the offensive numbers for Minnesota, they're all skewed, because half of it is Carson Wentz, and then there's JJ McCarthy, whatever. And also, so you don't really know what's going on there. On the Baltimore side of things, you can't look at either side, because they were brutalized by injuries on the defensive side. Last week was the first week they were healthy. And then obviously the same deal, where half of the data you're drawing from is without Lamar Jackson out there. So we don't have any of the stuff that by this point in the season that I love feeding off of. It's like great for me to move off of priors at this point and move into the hard data that I have in front of me. And both of these teams, I don't have that. It's all just fake. This is all just sitting out there, but none of it is applicable to this game right here, which is why I hate trends so much and all the stuff like that. Cause like someone could like put a trend together on this and be like, well, teams that have done this over the last 5 games and then enter this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, neither one of these teams had these quarterbacks last 5 games. Like, what are you doing? Like, these are completely different teams, So for me, I just look at it, and I think it is okay for us to come to the conclusion, look ourselves in the mirror and say, hey man, I'm interested to watch this game and see what Baltimore looks like second game back with Lamar, and the defense is healthy again, and we can see whatever. And hey, JJ McCarthy might be good. He might suck. Let's find out, and whatever. And just say this is more of an information gathering exercise than it is something we have to go out and put our money behind.
Absolutely. That's all very well said. And, again, you don't have to bet all these games. If you really want something, I guess maybe the over here. I think that both defenses are a little bit overrated based on what we saw, but we really don't know. Like you said, we don't have even really one clean game for each of these teams, let alone several that we can go back and look at to inform our decision.
New England Patriots are on the road at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is 2.5 in favor of Tampa, 48 out to 48.5 is our total in this market. Full transparency, in the no one cares what you have, there was a 3 here in Vegas. I took the 3 on New England. There hadn't been 3s available for quite some time, so we'll cap this from the 2.5 that is what is available as of this recording. I didn't think I was going to want to be on New England, and then the injury reports came out for Tampa, and it was just different than I thought. I mean, apparently Chris Godwin is still not close at all to coming back. Bucky Irving can't get back out there. Hassan Reddick can't get back out there, and this is a team coming off of a bye, Noop. So these injuries must have gotten really downplayed to us, because this was always when we were going to get like the best version of the Bucs. And of course, I know then the Mike Evans injury happened and all of that, but this was kind of when we had thought this is going to be it. And that's just not the case.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where I wish the Buccaneers were healthier, but I'm actually heartened that we see basically no injuries on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. The defense is healthy besides Hassan Reddick. And yes, I'd rather Chris Godwin Jr. be playing, but we've got Egbuka back. I wish Bucky Irving were playing, but Rachaad White is just fine, especially against a Patriots defense that has really struggled to deal with pass-catching backs. White's a great pass-catching back. I think he's actually going to be fairly productive here. And as I start to dig into the Patriots a little bit more, not that they're a bad team, but I don't think that they're in the same realm as this Buccaneers team that has won and beaten good teams all season, even with some of these injuries and with such a depleted roster. So I actually still see a lot of upside in Tampa Bay coming off the bye. Again, you look at this Patriots team, they've really only played 2 good teams, the Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe, I don't know how you feel about Atlanta. I don't consider them to be a good team. Even if you do, beating Atlanta by just 1 last week is really scary in terms of trying to trust the Patriots. So I like Tampa Bay quite a bit here. I think that, the Bucs, again, in danger of going on a 3-game losing streak, coming off the bye, we are going to get their very best. Any little bits or plays on offense that they've been holding on to, I think we see it this week. And again, from a matchup perspective. New England has done well against teams that like to run the ball between the tackles. That's not what the Buccaneers want to do here. So I like the Bucs. I'm going to lay the 2.5.
I like it. Every now and then we can disagree. I think for me, I just don't know what this Tampa offense looks like as a one-dimensional offense when you don't have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out there to do their thing. And no running back still has cracked 50 yards on this New England run defense. And so it's going to force Tampa Bay into being one-dimensional, right? I mean, this is as big a pass funnel defense as we've seen in a very, very long time on New England's side. And if this was full health and this was 2.5, I'd be perfectly fine with a pass funnel defense with Baker Mayfield, who's been able to work his magic with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and all of that. And that's just my only concern is Egbuka going to be enough? Because it's like it's Kate Otten is your second option, right? It's like Tez Johnson and all of that. So like, I don't know. Is Egbuka going to be enough when the Tampa is more than likely going to be forced into kind of passing at a much higher expectation than they want to?
It's a great call out. And again, I wish Godwin were there, but I like Egbuka. I think Sterling Shepard is underrated as a number 2 receiver. Tez Johnson has done really well. And guys even like Ryan Miller have been solid kind of in the slot in the middle of the field. And it's not that the Patriots defense pass-wise has been fantastic. I mean, Christian Gonzalez is very good. There's only one of him. So I think, Baker Mayfield's going to be able to find those guys down the field. And I just like the idea of a team that is already set up to throw the ball and not interested in really running it at all.
New York Football Giants are on the road at the Chicago Bears. This is 4.5, 5 in favor of the Bears at home over the Giants. 46.5 is our total here in this one. So Noops, the market moved against me. I played over 47, so I have the worst of the number. I get it. There could be some weather in this that has forced the total down. It's not to that level yet, and it's Chicago, so it can change, and I could be really, really on the bad side. It's not to the level yet that I get super concerned. I mean, 15 sustained is it's not great, but it's not like the worst thing in the world. And like Gus 25, whatever. I mean, we see that on fairly regular occasion. Yeah, I mean, if it's a long field goal, can certainly affect that and whatever. So I don't know. I mean, again, I'm on the worst of the number here. And certainly it could keep going lower if we wake up on Sunday and Chicago does what Chicago does, and it can be way, way worse. It could also be way, way better. That's the other thing we see with Chicago too, right? Where it just the stuff moves through faster than we thought and whatnot. So, I mean, the really only conclusion for me was 2 horrific defenses and two offenses that have shown at least a little bit of propensity for moving the ball and scoring. And so I thought this was a dead over game, and then the whole weather situation came in.
Yeah, I think the weather situation, too, we need to factor in how each of these teams play. Neither one of these teams kick a lot of field goals, so you can sort of lessen the impact there. Neither one of these teams really have receivers to push the ball down the field. Caleb Williams has been hesitant to throw downfield all season. Jackson Dart would love to throw the ball downfield, but there's just nobody on the team to get down there and catch the ball. So I think you're actually going to have a little bit of a limited effect weather-wise in terms of how this total looks. Now, my big concern for overbettors would be these are 2 teams that run clock, that run the ball. Maybe there's just not enough possessions to get this game over, but it's a situation where the Giants keep losing and I want to bet them. The Bears keep winning and I want to bet against them. So it's just a really, really difficult game here, especially when you consider the Giants don't have a single win on the road this season. And, the Bears, I think this is a game where we learn a lot about the Bears. Mm-hmm. If Chicago is a good team or maybe just not a bad team, they win this game by at least a touchdown. This Giants team is depleted. Like you mentioned, the defense is just abhorrent at this point. There is nothing in the secondary to slow down Caleb Williams here if he can finally really get his hands around this Ben Johnson offense and throw the ball. So it's Bears or pass. I'm going to pass and just try to see if this is another game where Chicago barely beats a bad team, or if they finally really show us that they've got some upside. They could be a good team and they win this game by 7, 10, maybe even 14 points.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, really torn with this because it's like, even if the weather is kind of wonky, Noops, it's like you make a great point about them. It's not really like a push the ball down the field type offense anyway. And honestly, like the Bears, I think, found something in Monangai last week, like pretty explosive dude. By the way, Giants giving up over the last 4 weeks the most the most rush yards, most rushing success rate, most rush EPA per play allow. Like the rush defense has been absolutely horrific. So you can still score by running the ball. I know we think like teams that run the ball a lot, it's like, oh well, it's just going to drain clock and you can't score. But it's like if you're getting runs at 8 and 9 and 11 yards and stuff a clip, you can still put up points. And so I don't know. I'm maybe I'm just talking myself into thinking that I didn't put in a bad bet in my account, but I'm actually not. I don't really hate it, even if I mean, unless we wake up to again the 30-mile-an-hour sustained and 45-mile-an-hour gusts, and then then at that point it's like it's toast. But outside of that, I'm like, I mean, you know.
I understand what you're trying to do, and it's good to be a little bit cautious. Obviously, long term, you always want to try to beat the market, but I agree. I don't know if CLV in this game, given the questions about the weather in both teams, is maybe as predictive as it would be in other games.
Arizona and Seattle. This is 6.5, 7 in favor of the Seahawks at home. 44.5 to 45 is our total. The Cardinals are going to stick with Jacoby Brissett and have placed Kyler Murray on IR, so he is going to go ahead and miss the next 4 weeks for this Arizona team as he tries to get that foot back healthy. Seattle gets back on, looks like just looks like a wagon again. I really like this Seattle team, Noops. Like, I don't know, man. The addition of Shaheed, here's the thing. Darnold was already throwing the best deep ball in the league as it was anyway, and that's not my opinion. That is not only stats, but also eyeball tests. Like, you can look at the EPA numbers and you can look at the PFF grades. So it's like it's both are saying that he's doing that very, very well. And if you're the other team, typically you have like one dude who does those routes and another dude who kind of does something else and whatever. Like, we look at the Lions and it's like, yes, they're still super dynamic because you've got Amon-Ra who runs all the routes. You got Jameson Williams who can take the top off. You got whatever. Now you got JSN and Shaheed who can both take the top off of the defense. Like, JSN leads the league in 20-plus yard receptions. So now you add in another dude to where JSN might fake that he's going, and now Shaheed goes, and all these things like that. Like, what they're able to do on the offensive side might be absolutely ridiculous. And there's already familiarity because Kubiak was in New Orleans last year with Shaheed, and he might have to step right on in, Noops, because Torrey Horton was a surprise DNP yesterday at practice for Seattle. And so I don't know. I mean, I think the spread's appropriate. I think it's about right. If you have Seattle left in Survivor and you want to use them this week, I think that's fine. I might, if you have a better play, I would caution against it mainly because I just love Seattle so much. And so they have a game against Tennessee left. They have a game against Atlanta left. They have a game against Carolina left. Like, if you have Seattle in your pocket for any of those, I think you'd love to be able to pull the trigger on those. But again, I think they're fine for Survivor as well.
Yeah, I don't love picking divisional games, but it does seem like a spot where Seattle could win. I love everything you said about Shaheed, and we'll just simply add that it just takes an offense in Seattle that's been good and makes it even more dynamic. There is going to be so much more space on the field with Shaheed running around. And like you said, Kubiak had a great season with him with Derek Carr, noodle arm Derek Carr, who couldn't throw the ball more than 15, 20 yards down the field anyway. So you have to be really excited about the Seahawks. You and I have been betting them all year. I'm pretty sure we both have some nice futures tickets in our pockets. So it's going to be a good game for that. But the Cardinals here, it's been interesting watching them the last couple of weeks. I can't believe that they're better with Jacoby Brissett than they are.
It's
the
so
offense
wild.
has been significantly better with him in. It finally turned into a win last week against Dallas, but only lost to Green Bay by 4, only lost to Indianapolis by 4. A close game, against the Titans there, still with Kyler Murray at that point, though. So I wonder if this Arizona team is going to be able to round into form a little bit. Possible look-ahead spot for the Seahawks. Now, it's a division game, but next week against the Rams is the most important game the Seattle Seahawks have left for basically the rest of the season. So you got to have to wonder, even if, again, division opponent, they kind of have one eye on the next week. They're great, but this line just looks to me just a little too high, especially on the road with the way Arizona has been able to kind of control games here. So lean Cardinals, but I still think the Seahawks win, and I'm certainly not betting Arizona.
Yeah, it would be Cardinals. Or now that we've gotten to a full touchdown, I think it'd be Cardinals or pass for me in this. And that's not a knock on Seattle. It's just, look, Arizona's not devoid of talent. I mean, they got a good receiver in Harrison. They've got one of the best tight ends in football in McBride. Yeah, the defense leaves a lot to be desired, but I mean, they can move the football and kind of hang a little bit. That's why this total isn't brutally low. It's 45. It's a fairly normal NFL total. So I'm with you. It's like, I'd probably have to take the 7, and that's saying a lot considering how much I love Seattle.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, and it is weird for both of us to basically spend this whole review talking about how great Seattle is, but both say we'd probably bet the Cardinals if we had to. That's football, baby.
Yeah. Detroit on the road at Washington. This is 8.5 in favor of Detroit. It is 49. You can find a 48.5 at FanDuel, all the way up to a 49.5 out there in the market as well at the big national books. So shop around for the total if you want to play that. Detroit coming off a loss where just hats off, like we said earlier. I mean, Minnesota's defense was just phenomenal in that game. I mean, just absolutely unbelievable. So I'm not really knocking anything there in that one. Washington, as we know, Noops did get some good news today. I guess there was no ligament damage in there for Jaden Daniels, so it might just be a long rehab for him as opposed to a complex surgery. So good for them for the long term. For the short term, they're going to be without him for the next several weeks. And McLaurin's still not back. Lattimore goes out last week as well. So it's a pretty depleted Washington team getting a Detroit team coming off of a loss. I can only imagine they're going to try to get things right here in this one.
If there's any team I wouldn't want to have to be this week, it'd be the Washington Commanders. Marcus Mariota has been solid as a backup, but clearly is nowhere near the level of what we expected from Jaden Daniels and what he's been able to perform. McLaurin, not the best wide receiver in the NFL, but arguably the most important in terms of his team, given not only who's behind him, but the fact that he is one of the best receivers in the league at stretching the field. Everything we just talked about with Shaheed, McLaurin does that and does it even better. So you've now got a Washington offense that's limited not only by the talent of their quarterback, but also by the amount of field that they're going to have open, given who the position players are here. Detroit, coming into this week, had they won last week against Minnesota, you'd be a little worried about the look ahead to the Eagles next week. But coming off a loss, Dan Campbell is going to have these guys ready to go. I think this is an absolute smash spot for the Lions. I'm happy to lay 8.5 or really any number less than 10, even though they're on the road. And a Commanders team total at 19.5 to me is at least 2 points too high, given, again, how limited the skill position group's going to be for the Commanders and just how good this Lions defense really has been all season. It's quietly one of the better defenses in the league in terms of DVOA and a lot of those different things. So I think that this is probably one of the easiest bets of the week. I think the Lions absolutely manhandle the Commanders.
So I told you I made the pivot this week. I'm actually gonna play Lions in Survivor this week, and I know I realize that there is holiday week value in the Lions down the line, but I still have the Eagles and the Ravens and the Chiefs. So I still have all of those teams. And so I have some versatility. And honestly, depending on what happens with Jaden Daniels and all of this, where it wouldn't be the most confident click for me, but clicking the Cowboys against the Commanders, out in Christmas too, if there's no Jaden Daniels and whatever, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for me there either. So they're only 30% available in Circa is Detroit, and the projections only have them getting 3 or 4% of the pool this week. And so just from a leverage situation and game theory situation, and the fact that I think that there's at least some degree of New Orleans being live against Carolina, I said that I thought that the Raiders were live against Denver. That proved to be true. Probably should have won that game. So I ended up on Detroit this week, and I'm glad to hear you say you think it's a smash spot, because hopefully it's a rocking chair win for me. I want to no sweat and just move on, and I'll deal with next week when next week gets here.
Yeah, I love that. Again, a lot of people, when they do these Survivor contests, they overthink things. Again, we talked about earlier, there are people seriously considering putting their survival on the line with the Cleveland Browns. Don't overthink it. This is a great spot to take Detroit.
Rams on the road at San Francisco. This is 4.5 pretty much across the board. Fanatics has 5 on the Rams. 49.5 to 50 is our total here in this one. Good news for the Rams. Puka Nacua did have to leave the game last week. It was a chest injury. Sean McVay said he is going to be good to go. Our only problem with handicapping this game, Noops, and maybe it's not because you might not care, is we still don't know who's going to play quarterback for San Francisco. We're getting that whole limited practice thing yet again with Brock Purdy. They will make the announcement either later today or tomorrow as to who they're going to go with and how it's going to look. We know now Pearsall not going to go for San Francisco. They can't get Huff back on the field either. Rams looking like a wagon. Certainly when they're fully healthy, going to be really, really tough. I think this is pretty appropriate from a spread perspective, but what say you?
I think if you're the 49ers, you'd be foolish to bring Brock Purdy back in this game that is kind of a must-win for them if they want to win the division or continue to compete for the number 1 seed. Really, if they can win this game, they have the tiebreaker over the Rams, which is huge. They give themselves a 1-game lead basically there as well in the standings over them and a real chance to catch up to Seattle and win that division and honestly compete for the number 1 seed. So I'm not bringing Purdy back after a big delay and time off there. He's going to be rusty. I would be shocked if it's not Mac Jones here. Let's bring Purdy back if we want the following week against some lesser competition here in the Cardinals on the road, or even wait another week, bring him back against that Panthers defense that we know stinks while they're at home. So I'm expecting to see Mac Jones here. We've got a game where, again, the Rams lost to the 49ers earlier in the season in a game where they were pretty much in control up until the fourth quarter. The 49ers able to get the game into overtime and win there. I think we're going to see just a great effort out of the Rams, who looked awesome last week coming off the bye. Both of these offenses have succeeded against good defenses, but again, they rely heavily on the run. They know that a lot of this is about controlling games and script and things like that. These are both coaches that know how to salt away games that they've got to lead at halftime. I think this is going to be a great kind of old school football, ugly divisional game. I can't believe the total is 49.5. I had this closer to 46.5, maybe 47.5 as I started to tweak a few things, but I love the under here.
I'm going to do something we have never done, but the Twitter machine, we say we keep getting updates, but while we record this thing, so I'm going to play something here. Oh, okay. So that is, I don't know if you guys could hear that. No, that was Dave Canales. I guess they shut down Tet McMillan today at practice for the Panthers with a hamstring flare-up.
I don't like that.
So said that they will reevaluate him this evening and in the morning as far as where they will go with him. So, yeah, that is that's big. That is big. So just again, we don't know the extent of all this. This is breaking news as we're recording this, and so but that was Dave Canales at the podium just now for his post practice briefing. So we'll certainly keep you updated there on that one. Okay, Sunday Night Football. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the LA Chargers. Of course, our Sunday Night Football games are brought to you each and every week by our friends over at Bet365. And Noops, we've talked ad nauseum here on this podcast about how much we love Bet365. I mean, they give you this incredible menu out there and so many different bets that you don't get at some of the other sports books. This is why we always say you've got to have as many outs as possible. And Bet365 should definitely be part of your portfolio. If you do not use Bet365 right now in a market that has it, you got to go ahead and sign up today because it is it's one of the best ones out there. Again, if you're in a market, check, see if it's available in your area.
It's a great book. Some incredible menu offerings. And again, a lot of times I find in some of the higher VIG markets like touchdown score and player props, Bet365 often has the best line. So like Matt said, if you are in a state with Bet365, like New Jersey, like Pennsylvania, like Arizona, you're leaving money on the table by not signing up for an account.
Okay, so let's get to it here. Pittsburgh Steelers on the road at the LA Chargers. This is 2.5 in favor of the Chargers. 44.5, 45 is the prevailing total. Now, this thing opened on a very early line at 4.5. It was gone really, really quickly, got to 3.5. I didn't get the 4.5. I got the 3.5 on Pittsburgh in this one. I think the offensive line situation for the Chargers is just an absolute mess. I know they traded with the Saints, Noops, but Penning was so bad at tackle that the Saints had moved him to guard, and now the Chargers are taking him and bringing him back to have him play tackle. I bet that's going to go great. If the Saints didn't want him playing tackle, and you're going to bring him in to play tackle for you, let's see how that works out for you. The Pittsburgh defense showed me something last week. I mean, whether it's real or not, we'll see. But I hate this Pittsburgh team. But on the other side of a field goal, I thought it was too much. At 2.5, I think it's fine. I think it's appropriate. If it hits 3 again, it probably would be only Steelers for me again.
Yeah, hats off to anybody that was able to scoop up those 4s and 4.5s. That was a great bet. I think even anyone who got Steelers plus 3.5 made a very good bet. 2.5 is just not enough for me. I think it's Steelers or pass. Maybe just play them on the money line at this point. But the Chargers, it's just a shame. A team that started off with so much promise. They beat the Chiefs in the first game of the year finally. Herbert's looking great. They're 3-0. And then all of a sudden the injuries start to pile on. You know, not just Joe Alt, but their other tackle from the beginning of the season. Slater was out already. So, I mean, they're down 2 starting tackles already for the season. You made a great explanation of the Penning situation. Sure, Penning is going to help the Chargers, but just think about how bad the Chargers have to be to bring in someone like that and actually have them improve the line. TJ Watt should be able to do pretty much whatever he wants in this game, and it just seems like yet another week in which the Steelers are going to sort of stumble into a much easier situation than we expected. So Steelers are past. The only other way I would think about betting this is go into the futures market and start looking at some prices for the Chargers to miss the playoffs. I'm seeing around plus 160 or so. It's a better price than you're going to get on the Steelers money line. And if the Chargers lose this game, they are really in danger. They have to go to Jacksonville next week. They do have the Raiders. That's fairly easy. But then it's home for the Eagles, which is basically going to be a home game for the Eagles in Los Angeles. Those fans travel. They fill that stadium up every time the Eagles play. Then they have to go at Kansas City. Dallas is a little bit easier, but then you've got Houston and Denver to finish the season. It's a really bad situation for the Chargers. So Steelers are pass for me, and I think, honestly, the best bet you can make is get yourself some Chargers to miss the playoffs.
All right, guys, as always, everything we do here absolutely free, so please go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Let us know in the comment section how you are going to be playing these games. Is there anything you think we missed? Is there anything that you have in your account that you really, really love? Hell, it might be something that somebody else wants to put in their account, so be sure and share down there in the comment section. Noops, you've got several articles up over at the site as well over at Lineups.
Yeah, read about Survivor every week to try to help you through that. We did Thursday Night Football touchdowns, had Troy Franklin. That was a nice winner there. And we'll be writing up Monday Night Football touchdowns as well.
There you go. So be sure and check out everything over at Lineups as well. For Noops, I am Matt. Good luck on all your Week 10 bets.
Bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets, win or lose, with Bet365 Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 21 plus only. T&Cs apply. In-app only.